and welcome, good evening, and welcome to the Post Route. What is the Post Route, you may ask? Well, thank you for asking. I'm the host, W. Earl Kitchings, and it is my pleasure to be able to bring a show to life that probably will be like no other show that you've ever seen that deals with football, at least. The Post Route is a weekly show that will have conversations with black quarterbacks, both past and present. And we felt it our duty here at Quarter Five Backs, who's presenting this show, to make sure that the legacies, these long legacies of black quarterbacks who have been around this game of football for over 100 years, does not and do not get diminished. And that is our whole purpose and point for being here on the Post Route. So we're asking you to join us every Monday night here at 7 o'clock for this particular show. And please subscribe to our show and to our YouTube channel so you can join us. And then we want you to tell friends about this very unique and special show that will be bringing you such golden nuggets from the guys who were the leaders, from these guys who were the most iconic players on a football team, because everybody knows the quarterback. If you don't know anybody else on the field, you know who that quarterback is. And as glamorous of a job as that is, it comes with a lot of responsibility. So much responsibility that during the times when a lot of black quarterbacks were trying to make it, to minimize them, the NFL used to have what they called a Wonderlic test, an aptitude test, to minimize the opportunities for black quarterbacks to get a fair shot in the NFL to play the position of quarterback. Because when we talk about iconic positions, the quarterback touches the football almost on every play, but the center touches it on every play. That is the second most iconic position, even though it's not said to be, but he is the captain. He is that leader of that offensive line, that five-man rotation. He is the guy giving out the directions and the instructions to those other guys. But it is his job to make sure there's a smooth transition of that ball from himself to his quarterback and to protect that quarterback at all costs for the most part. So when we talk about these guys who want to be quarterbacks, have been quarterbacks, are quarterbacks, this is nothing lightly. And as coaches, they put a lot of their trust into guys to play this position because they're their eyes and ears on the field. Even though the coach is on the sideline, it looks a little different when you're standing under center, looking across from defenders, those terrible linebackers who want to knock your head off. So there's trust, there's leadership, there's responsibility, there's accountability, and of course, there's delivering on the goods, and that is making those accurate passes. Now, some guys have played quarterback forever, since their days in Pop Warner. And when they played that position for since maybe 8, 9 years old, and they go all the way into their late 20s. So imagine a guy playing football 20 years goes from 8 years old, 9 years old to 29, 30 years old. That's 20 years of playing football. That's a lot of snaps. That's a lot of pounding. That's just a lot of everything. But what we're going to do here at the Post Route is bring you these quarterbacks who sometimes their stories are going to sound very similar. Sometimes they're going to sound different. But the one thing that they all have in common, and that's what we're doing here at Quarter Five Back, who is presenting this weekly show, is that becomes a fraternity. And that's why the organization Quarter Five Back was started, to create this fraternity amongst black quarterbacks. So it's Quarter Five Back. And if you're a Greek, you know what the phi is. You know that means Greek. So it's a connection. It's a brotherhood. And all of these guys are standing on the shoulders for every guy who's playing in the NFL right now, even tonight on Monday Night Football. They are standing on the shoulders of another quarterback. especially if they're standing on the shoulders of a black quarterback who played that position for their particular team before them. They are standing on their shoulders. And what has to happen is that transition goes from then to now. And a lot of times you'll find that these guys love this brotherhood. They keep in touch with one another. It's something that I'm sure it happens to other parts of the team, but nothing like the quarterbacks because they know that everything goes through them, by them, and with them in order for the teams to be successful. And let me tell you, in my I'm not afraid to share it. Over 60 years of watching this game and seeing this game and watching it being played, I've seen some phenomenal black quarterbacks. I played with a couple of phenomenal black quarterbacks in high school, and I've been talking to a few phenomenal quarterbacks in my profession as a sports information director and athletic marketing director at the collegiate level. And as I'm now talking to these guys who are now becoming members of our weekly watch list, and we'll give you our weekly watch list near the end of the show of the top quarterbacks, black quarterbacks at both the high school level and at the HBCU level. Nothing like this has ever been done before, but we feel blessed that it was saved for us to bring it to you now here at Quarter-Five Backs and this show, The Post Route. Because had this not been done, we will still be trying to put the pieces together to the puzzle about these black quarterbacks. But in a day and time when these guys are making millions of dollars, for those of us who have lived through segregation and integration and that transition, we couldn't be more prouder to know that these guys are capable and they have the abilities and talents to do what you see them do every week, week in and week out. So we ask that you continue to support us in our efforts to make this show a top-notch show here on YouTube and to tell your family and friends about this very unique platform that we're bringing to you. So, being that this is our first show, I wanted to kick it off the right way. Yeah, I had to do it the right way. And what that meant to me was if I had to bring on a quarterback, the first quarterback that I needed to bring on would be my teammate, my classmate, and my friend. This guy was built to be a quarterback. He had the ability, he had the smarts. And man, let me tell you, when we were in junior high school, sometimes in class, we would create and make up plays. We would make up plays that we thought we should run either in gym or maybe he would do in Pop Warner, but we would draft up plays and talk about them. And that started a friendship that has expanded over decades. So it is my honor and privilege to bring the guy who here in my era, we all looked up to him. And I like to call him, he's got a lot of nicknames. He's got a lot of nicknames. And, but the name that I love to call him because he reminded me of a guy that played for the New York Jets, Joe Broadway Namath. I call him Broadway. So tonight, joining me is my special guest, my teammate, my classmate, the first black quarterback to ever play at the University of Florida, the one and only Don Gaffney. Hey, Don, how's it going tonight?
I'm fine, Earl. How are you, partner?
Broadway, it's always a pleasure when we can sit down and chop it up a little bit and talk about some things. And I tell you, it always gets my blood going, man, when I can talk about some of those times in school. And let me just start with this, Don. Let me just start with this.
All right.
You started playing quarterback in Pop Warner. Is that something you wanted to do? Something you felt you had the best abilities to do? Or did they just kind of throw you in there to see what would happen?
Earl, I think you know what happened. They kind of threw me in there just to see what was happening. Because I do recall those days when we would sit in class at Northwestern and talk about different things. And my goodness, we'd make up all types of plays. You know, the irony, we ended up running those kind of plays. We said, just to be doing it,
Right.
We used to watch those games on television on the weekends, and then we'll come back and add our little 2 cents and come up with our own version of those plays. Those were some
Absolutely.
wonderful times. But one of the things that I share with people a lot, Earl, is what you used to tell me what a quarterback was all about, what was necessary in order to be a quarterback, the type of leadership you had to have. I'll never forget those days. And I used to check the little boxes. Am I doing this? Am I doing that? And of course, you need to share the story, Earl, about before we got the reins. And you were telling me, well, look, Broadway, if you will, this is what you're going to have to do by the time you get over the reins. Coach is going to expect this and that and all those things that a quarterback had to do. I knew that I was going to have to know how to do those things before I got there. So you had a great deal to do with that, Earl.
Well, I appreciate that, Don, because I think the times we spent in junior high school were very important to us. And I think when we started playing football, I know you were still playing Pop Warner when I was on the ninth grade football team. And that always was a curiosity for me. Like, well, why isn't he over here with us in ninth grade? But he's still, okay, no problem. But when we got to 10th grade, because I never saw you play for the and your team at that time was the Astro Bees.
Right.
I never saw you play for the Astro Bees. Always heard about the Astro Bees. Right. Never saw him play. So my first time actually seeing Don Gaffney in a position to play the position of quarterback was when we were going out for junior varsity in 10th grade.
That's right.
And
absolutely,
the tradition at that time was that the starting quarterbacks on the varsity, and I don't know how this happened, but the starting quarterbacks on the varsity were wearing number 41.
Number 41, absolutely.
Number 41. I mean, Kenny Burroughs wore 41. Harold Carmichael wore 41. Yeah. Rome Hutchinson wore 41.
Yep.
Donald Gaffney wore 41 in 10th grade.
Right.
When the coaches changed and things went a little different, but the tradition of seeing guys like that play and watching those caliber of guys and just waiting on your time, because I know you can be a little anxious. I won't say impatient, just anxious, because you want to demonstrate to a coach what your abilities are. But as we've talked about some other quarterbacks, sometimes you just got to wait your turn. And these guys in the pros, sometimes you just got to wait your turn. So I think it was a good thing that we had that 10th grade season together, because I think once everybody kind of got out the way, there were no other challengers that you had to deal with as a quarterback on the varsity. That was all moved away. So it was wide open. It's like, well, everybody's going to be your backup. But man, let me tell you, watching you play quarterback and throwing that ball and slinging that ball in 10th grade, man, was a sight to behold. And I'll never forget, we played Terry Park in the first play of the game. You threw what we call the bomb to one of your favorite receivers, man. And I'm like, oh my goodness, if this guy is not special. So it was amazing. It was amazing.
Those were wonderful times, Earl. And again, with that the tradition of number 41, I'll never forget. Even before, you may recall, even before we got to the reins, we used to battle over who's going to wear 41. And of course, this is the irony. I mean, we used to, you may recall when I used to tell guys, well, I'm going to wear 41 when I get the reins. That's my jersey. I mean, in other words, and the guys go, well, you got to be the starting quarterback if you're going to wear number 41 in reins. That's a big deal. Some great players over there. And that was the battle, really, to see who got 41, but you weren't going to get it until you won that job. Yeah. And I recall saying to Coach that I really want to be, I want to wear 41. Coach said, what you want to do is try to earn a spot on the team, Don. That's what you want to try to do. Instead of trying to dictate what number you're going to wear, you got to do what's necessary to make the team and be the best quarterback. And I remember Earl saying there was Anthony Casey. Remember this kid that was coming over the reins at that time? And Earl, we still talk about today how you got me ready. You told me how good Casey was, and of course he was playing to wear number 41 also. So, my thing is, I remember saying, well, I'll yield that number I'm going to win the job though. And
Right.
the whole
Right.
deal was I wasn't afraid to battle for the job. I just wanted to become the best quarterback that I could become. And I remember saying, you may recall, Earl, after 10th grade, I said, it doesn't matter what jersey I wear. My job, my quest is to be the #1 quarterback at Reigns. And of course, for the most part, there was so much talent over there that you had to wait your turn. And seldom did a junior become the starting quarterback at that great institution. And so I felt honored to be able to come in, become the starting quarterback with Reigns, and of course, put on another jersey, number 10, just in case I didn't win the starting job. And I had to wear another number. I remember saying, well, I'm going to pretend I didn't want to wear 41 anymore. That's right.
Well, Don, I have to say that after our sophomore season, when you became the starting quarterback our junior year, when you switched to number 10, I think after a few games, everybody in Jacksonville knew who you were, knew to be on the lookout for number 10, knew that you were a weapon. I won't say you were a total dual threat quarterback, but you had some wheels that if you got in trouble, you could escape. So talk a little bit about that time at Reigns, because not only were you an all-conference performer, but your senior year, you became the first player in Reigns history to earn first-team All-State honors as a quarterback. Talk a little bit about your Reigns experience.
Well, Earl, here again, when you come from an institution, a school like Reigns, which represented a big neighborhood, a lot of kids came from all over North Jacksonville to want to play, want to be a part of that Reigns Viking tradition. Just as you and I and some others used to sit in the classroom and talk about the different plays and that we would do if we were coaching or quarterbacking or running the show. The whole idea was to be prepared for whatever you might run into once you got to Reigns. Coach may want you to be a certain type of quarterback, regardless what he wanted you to do. You had to do that. My days playing Pop Warner gave me an opportunity to develop physical. Because you remember, Earl, I wasn't big like Lynn Robinson or Harold.
You're not a big guy.
Yeah, wasn't a big guy. And here again to I guess sort of get others to not stop worrying about my size. I said, well, I'm going to change what the quarterback at Reigns High School looks like. Mm-hmm. I'm going to become a different type of quarterback. Mm-hmm. And of course, from Pop Warner on through Reigns and right on into the University of Florida, I thought versatility was the key to all of that. Being able to drop back and throw it from a pocket, and also to throw it on the run, learning every aspect of it so I wouldn't limit myself. I didn't know what would happen once I got there and became the starting quarterback. But whatever coach wanted me to do, Earl, as you very well know, I was going to be willing to do that. I was willing to do that because I didn't want to have anything that anybody can use against me and say, well, this guy can't do a particular type of thing. I wanted to learn to read the defenses, learn to lead a team. All the things that you hear back in the day about what, African-American quarterbacks could not do. I wanted to make sure I got around all that type of stereotypes. I wanted to be a complete quarterback.
Well, Don, no doubt about it. You became a complete quarterback, over 2,500 plus yards in your final 2 years at Reigns and 35 touchdowns. And just the fact that you changed the complexion of quarterbacking at Reigns, because you are definitely the first passing quarterback that Reigns actually had that was, everything was predicated on throwing the ball. And I think because you were able to have your brother Derek on the team to throw to, I think that helped in solidifying your efforts for having a receiver that you had confidence in, who you knew could get the ball, and you didn't mind throwing the ball to him. And For those of you who don't know it, during high school, it would be Gaffney to Gaffney for the touchdown. And so it was a great thing. I mean, and the highlights that we lived through. So your time at Range, you are the one that set the bar for quarterbacking. And as we look at the guys now, they need to know that as far as passing, they all stand on Don Gaffney's shoulders from a passing perspective as a quarterback. There are other quarterbacks, as we already mentioned, but you were the guy that put passing on the map for us. So we are definitely enjoyed all those Friday nights and some Saturdays. We played a couple of Saturday games where you as they say, you just shredded them, and ironically, you were able to capture the city. You captured a community. You captured the North Side. Everybody had faith and belief that as long as you win the game, we had a chance to win. And I say that sincerely, that, hey, man, if you win the game, look, it's like Tom Brady. If you leave too much time on the clock for Don Gaffney, you're in trouble, because he's going to find a way to thread that thing. And you better shut number 80 down, because you know he's going to him first. But I think those were great times. So now your senior year is over. You're all state, and all these, I'm sure, letters start pouring in.
Yeah.
So now it's decision time. And this is one of those questions I was saying earlier in our preliminary talk was, okay, so now you got all these letters. What or who or how did you decide on the University of Florida? And what could have been your other options had you not gone to Florida?
Well, you know, Earl, we were all Gator fans, and because we see college football programs here in Jacksonville, and you see a lot of Florida football, and so here again, the Southeastern Conference, we got a lot of that. We can get a chance to see a lot of others. Naturally, the ultimate dream, of course, was to go to a Grambling or Florida A&M, Tennessee State, where quarterbacks with big arms, talented quarterbacks had gone in and did some wonderful things. I didn't really know exactly what would happen, what I would have to do to develop to the point where some of those schools would be interested in what I did. At Range, you had to be quarterback there. You had to be a complete quarterback, as I said earlier. I started getting letters from different schools. And of course, the first school that I heard from was Tennessee State. And then ultimately, Florida A&M, University of Tennessee, University of Florida. But by the time the end of our junior year, I started getting letters from a lot of schools in the Southeast, Southeastern Conference, the ACC, different schools like that. Schools where guys that looked like me, Earl, as you very well know, didn't exactly exist, not in that position. And it really, the irony is, I wasn't aware that that I would, if I had the opportunity to go to one of those type schools, that I'd be the first black quarterback, if you will. We should talk about Shaq Harris, Marlon Briscoe, guys like that came out of traditional HBCUs. And those were our heroes. Those are the guys that I emulated and guys I wanted to be. I wanted to try to develop my talent to play like those guys. In the SEC, you just didn't see that. But I became fond of Coach Doug Dickey when he was at the University of Tennessee. And of course, Tennessee started recruiting me. And before too long, Coach Dickey ended up at Florida. Because we were familiar with Florida football, because I liked Coach Dickey a whole lot, I started giving the University of Florida a great deal of consideration and ultimately signed with the Gators.
Well, Don, to hear that Tennessee State, I mean, we're talking about Tennessee State, man.
Yes.
We're talking about Eldridge Dickey and Jefferson Street Joe Gilliam.
That's right. That's right.
We're talking about right behind those two guys, there could have been a Don Gaffney at Tennessee State, because Tennessee State was probably one of the few HBCU programs where they threw the football.
They threw the football, and they were developing guys who were getting opportunities to go to the NFL. And these were guys that everybody hadn't heard a lot about, but they were responding favorably towards these guys because they had tremendous ability. And of course, everybody knew Jefferson Street Joe Gilliam. I mean, as you very well know, Earl, I got a chance to meet Joe and watch him work a few times when he come to Jacksonville. And I knew that at some point, in order for me to make it at any level, there are things that I was going to have to really develop and learn to do. So I began to emulate some of the things that Jefferson Street Joe did. I started watching Shaq Harris and some of the things that he did. I understood that whichever way it went, I had to be prepared to lead a football team and learn how to be a leader on the football field at the next level. Reigns was my comfort zone.
Right.
I grew up a Viking. That's our neighborhood. But now once you step outside and you go to the collegiate level where you got guys coming from all over, it all starts, it's going to be a different type of competition. I went on, Earl, as you very well know, and signed with the University of Florida, going to the SEC. And to be quite candid with you, you and I Earl, that we didn't talk about being the first Black anything at that point. But you can rest assured, when Condrich Holloway signed with Tennessee, we were aware of the fact that he was the first Black or African American, if you will, to lead an SEC team or have the opportunity to do just that. And then all of a sudden, I realized that if I attended the University of Florida, that I'd be the first Black quarterback to attend the University of Florida. It's one thing to be signed to a scholarship at an institution like that, but it's another thing to get on the field.
So, Don, once you got to Florida in the fall or the summer, I would think, of 1972.
Right.
What were your initial thoughts as a young Black football player going to a place that had not fully embraced integration? What was it like for you in those early months before football season started, and then after the season got started? What was that transition like? Because that is a strong transition to go from a Black community, an all-Black high school, all Black coaches. Everything was looking like you, felt like you. Everything was what you were comfortable with. But now you stepped out, man, and that takes some courage. I mean, that really had to take some courage. What was that like?
Earl, to be candid with you, again, at least in my particular instance, right away I began to realize that, this is something different. Even though we'd followed the game real closely growing up as kids, it dawned on me that that first summer when I got there, this is going to be interesting because there's nobody on the field that summer that looked like me. What I meant by that, I was the only Black quarterback there. The first realization came during the high school all-star game that summer. I was already enrolled at the University of Florida. At the end of the spring, at the beginning of summer, I enrolled in classes there, and see guys from all over the state of Florida, both the North and the South football teams in the all-star game, high school all-star game. And I was the only Black athlete at that position at quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
And what I remember most, Earl, there were 9 quarterbacks in the high school all-star game.
Wow.
And 8 of those guys were white guys, and 1 guy was Black, and that was me. And it dawned on me for sure then, get ready, because this is how it's going to look. This is what the quarterback room is going to look like, my friend. And of course, going into the high school all-star game, a lot of folks, I realized, had heard my name before, but didn't realize that I was a Black quarterback. So now it starts all over again. I've got to go out and sell Don Gaffney. I got to go out and be the best that I can be, because I realize now that the opportunity that I was about to experience I had a whole lot of help coming out of a comfort zone, out of Jacksonville Reigns. Now I'm in a situation here where I got to start all over again. And it's not going to be easy because not only am I going to be looked at as a different type of quarterback, from a standpoint of what my skill set is, but I've also now have another label. I'm a black quarterback for the first time, if you will, not just a quarterback.
Well, you say you're a black quarterback. That we always knew you as a black quarterback. So
absolutely.
Hey guys, we're gonna take a quick time out to pay some bills with some of our sponsors. This is the Post Route with your host, W. Earl Kitchings. My guest tonight, the first black quarterback at the University of Florida to play for the Florida Gators, Don Gaffney. We're going to take a 1-minute time out. We'll be right back. Hold on. So here's the deal. There is a book that I wrote called The Forgotten QBs. As you can see there, a couple of copies behind me. And this book was written so that the legacies of black quarterbacks would never be forgotten, like my guest tonight. It is the little-known information, statistics, history about black quarterbacks who played the game of American football. It's called The Forgotten QBs. You can go to the website, quarterfiveback@yahoo.com or quarterfiveback.com to find out more about my book, The Forgotten QBs. You can order the book, free shipping. It's only $35. You will find out that there are some nuggets in this book that will make your head spin, and you will become a more knowledgeable person. So again, if you're interested in getting a copy of The Forgotten QBs, go to our website on the Quarter Five Back website, click on the site, and check out the book, and then order the book. That's The Forgotten QBs, written by me, W. Earl Kitchings. Now, if you went to a HBCU and you are looking for the best gear to wear, let me tell you where you need to go. Either go in the store or shop online. It's called the Anthony Lawrence Collection. They're located in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And let me tell you, I don't think anybody, any store can match what this business is doing for the apparel of HBCUs. If they don't have your school, they'll make it. But they have most of the D1 schools and many of the Division II schools in their collection. The Anthony Lawrence Collection, home of HBCU gear and apparel. Go to their website at theanthonylawrencecollection.com, find what you need, put in the order, and let them know you heard about it on the Post Route. Once again, that's the Anthony Lawrence Collection at theanthonylawrencecollection.com. You go there and find what you're looking for, and I guarantee you, you'll be looking real good at the next game. We're going to get back to my guest now. My teammate, my classmate, my friend, Don Gaffney, first black quarterback at the University of Florida. He was telling us about that transition. So, Don, now that you are on the team and you've gone through your freshman year, and you didn't, I don't think, and maybe you did, you had spot duty, you got some playing time, but not until your next year.
Yeah.
And we're going to fast forward everybody to the two games that, no matter what else you did at Florida, these two games put Donald Gaffney and the Gators on the map based on his career. First, that game at Auburn where you got to start as a sophomore up in Auburn, Alabama to play the Tigers. What about that game?
Well, after going through the SEC 4 years as a freshman, I got a chance to play in spot duty. Earl, you may recall our senior year at Reigns was the first year that freshmen became eligible to play at the varsity level, at the collegiate level. Mm-hmm. And so up until that time, you're going as a freshman. Once you sign that grant aid, nobody will hear anything about you until you were a sophomore. In most cases, particularly quarterbacks, until you were a junior. You go from having all this notoriety as a high school senior to a guy that's somewhat obsolete, as you very well know. But, one of the things about being an Afro-American quarterback, if you will, at that time, You didn't have to worry about it. People remember the black quarterback, particularly if he came out of a situation like Reigns and went into an institution like the University of Florida or Georgia or Auburn, Alabama, one of those schools where there's never been anyone that looks like you. I mentioned Condredge Holloway, who was actually the first black quarterback to start a game in the Southeastern Conference, Earl, who you know very well. Condredge was a guy that we've heard a whole lot about. And I was just excited every time I hear the guy's name. I was anxious to meet him. And I wanted to learn as much as I could about him, even though there was only 1 year difference in our eligibility level. But our freshman year at the University of Florida, my freshman year at the University of Florida, Condredge was a sophomore. And now people were introduced to Condredge Holloway. He didn't get an opportunity to play his freshman year, but I was getting an opportunity to play my freshman year, which was his sophomore year. Right. So essentially, we began as starting quarterbacks in the same year, but Holloway played as the starting quarterback before I got a chance to be a starting quarterback. And the irony is, we didn't face each other during our time in the SEC. So I never faced a black quarterback. But you're playing. I was playing in a situation where, for the very first time, I'm playing for a school that is in a conference, the Southeastern Conference, where Alabama had just won the national title. And as you very well know, the first SEC game that I had the opportunity to take a snap in was against the University of Alabama. Our freshman year, my freshman year at the University of Florida, because freshmen were allowed to play on varsity squads, the Gator coaching staff thought that I was a guy that might be able to help as a freshman, or they wanted me to get that experience, which was extremely shocking to me. I worked hard, Earl. I was ready to play, as you very well know, and was used to working hard, and I wanted to be the best that I could be. The Gator coaching staff thought that I had done all the right things, and they thought that it'd be better for me and the Gators if I got an opportunity to get some of that experience as a freshman. And the irony is, my second collegiate game with the University of Florida, we went to Tuscaloosa to play the University of Alabama Crimson Tide. And I did not expect to play. Alabama was so good that year that by halftime, the game was over. But at some point in the early part of the fourth quarter, Coach Doug Dickey said to me, "Don, I want you to go in and take some snaps." I actually thought I was talking to someone next to me. He was talking to me. And here I am a few months ago. I was at Reigns taking snaps. I'm saying to myself. And he says, "Don, take some snaps, go warm up. You're going in." And then when I realized he was talking about me, the first thing that came to my mind was, what in the world have you gotten yourself into? Right? This is not Rebound or Stanton. This is the Alabama Crimson Tide. And I'm happy to say, Earl, the irony, you've heard the story. The first pass that I threw as a Florida Gator was in that game. And it was a completion. And I was just excited. And, a lot of things go on in your head. And I remember saying to myself, oh, man, I can do this. And the irony is, one of the biggest lessons that I learned in the game, period, when I say the game, in the game of football and life, was you do what's right, not what someone tells you to do, unless it's the right thing to do. And if you're going to be a leader on the football field, you're going to be a quarterback. You expect to be the leader. You are the guy in that huddle. You have to take charge. The very next play, Coach Dickey called the same play. All I had to do was do the same thing. But instead of doing what I was supposed to do and following the reads, like I've been taught all my days, receiver that we had, one of my white teammates said, "Look, throw me the ball. I'm open." And I said to him, I said, "Well, the other guy was open too." He said, "Just throw me the blank, blank ball." And I looked at him. Yeah, this guy was a junior at the time. I was a freshman. Right. And I took the snap, got right back. And instead of going where I went the last time, the read was the same, but Don Gaffney, being the brilliant guy that I am, the great leader that I was, didn't do what I was supposed to do, what I've been coached to do. I did what that receiver told me to do. And I threw the ball to him, and a guy by the name of Woodrow Lowe, you ever heard that name before, Woody Lowe, who was a freshman also like myself, stepped in front of that ball, intercepted, and ran it all the way back for a touchdown. The only time in my career that happened to me. And I didn't see the whole thing because as soon as Lowe picked the ball off, somebody knocked me out. And I remember listening to the crowd, Earl, and I'm laying there for a few seconds, and the crowd got louder and louder. And I realized, yeah, he scored. And so I threw a pick six.
So we're gonna fast forward to not the Auburn game. We're gonna fast forward to the game against Georgia, where you were in the control situation of bringing the Gators back. Take us through that winning touchdown pass that you threw or run to win that game, and what kind of emotions you felt by beating Georgia in Jacksonville at the Gator Bowl in the Florida-Georgia game.
Well, that's a wonderful memory, one of the best that I have as an athlete, period, Earl. One of the things that stood out and still stands out with me about that was I knew then that I had become a complete quarterback, because here we are in a situation where, we had to run a 2-minute drill. I'm playing in a place where I played many times before. We had our home games in the Gator Bowl in Jacksonville. So I was very familiar with that. But it was the first time that I had an opportunity to come back to Jacksonville as a starting quarterback for the Gators. And it was exciting. I was still being referred to as Florida's black quarterback instead of Florida's quarterback.
That's right.
But, we were trailing late in the game. And we had one timeout remaining. I will never forget that. And the whole idea was, Coach Diggins said to me, "Don, you've got it." After we used the previous timeout, said, "Okay, you're gonna have to run this 2-minute drill." And I've been coached to do that. One of the things that I knew that I knew that if I was going to be a leader, if I was going to be a true quarterback, I was going to have to show that type of leadership ability on the field. And I think we had to go 65 yards really with a little more than 2 minutes to go. And we went the distance. And with, I think it was about 11 seconds left on the clock, I threw a touchdown pass to Lee McGriff, one of our receivers at Florida, that put us within 2 points of Georgia. 1 point of Georgia. We won, and the extra point would have tied the game up. Coach Dickey decided we didn't come to Jacksonville to play for a tie, and we were going to go for 2. Then I threw a 2-point conversion to my big tight end by the name of Hank Folberg, and we came from behind to beat Georgia with less than 10 seconds left on the clock when I threw that touchdown in a 2-point conversion. It was one of the biggest wins in Gator history. It certainly was one of the biggest wins in my history. I have become the starting quarterback, not the starting black quarterback. I become the starting quarterback for Florida Gators. We went on to achieve what Gator folklore knows as what's known around here as a November to Remember, where we won actually 5 straight games. First time Florida won the 4 games in November against our rivals, Georgia, Auburn, Georgia, Florida State, Miami, and of course, the University of Kentucky was the 5th team that we played every year. And it was a big deal for us. The very next year, we won our first 2 games, my junior year. And the irony is, Earl, in the first game of the year, our first game the next year, I was booed as the starting quarterback. Yeah.
Okay. So, biggest game, I would say, in your career at Florida. So, what it would be done as we get ready to close out, what would be your fondest memory? Because you've already mentioned that, you thought the world of Coach Dickey. I'm sure your relationship with him was very special, being that you became the first black quarterback at Florida. He had just left Tennessee, where that situation was changing. What would be a fond memory that you can leave our listeners and viewers with about your relationship with Coach Dickey?
Well, I mean, he was such a wonderful person. He was a great coach. He was a people person. He respected his players. He loved his players. Quite candid with the end. Coach Dickey's is a guy that took care of his players. He demanded respect from his players. He respected his players, and he expected you to be the best that you can be. And he did everything that he could to help each one of his players be the best that it could be. Just a great man who I have tremendous respect for. When he recruited me, from the time that I met Coach Dickey for the very first time when I was being recruited, Earl, to the time that I graduated with my undergrad degree before I went to law school, Coach Dickey was always the same person with me. And he always encouraged me during the tough times. He always said to me, Don, don't worry about a thing. You're going to be okay. Just do the best that you can do. I respected him for that. He gave me the opportunity that he said he would give me to become the starting quarterback at Florida. He didn't promise me anything. He gave me the opportunity, but he assured me that if I was the best there, that I'd play. And I became his 3-year starter.
Well, Don, I know we could go on and on talking about some of the great stories in your life about playing quarterback and, all the things that you've experienced over time. But we just are so happy you took a short moment out of your evening to be with us here on the Post Route to talk a little bit about Don Gaffney at the University of Florida, and prior to that, being the legend that you remained at Raines High School. My friend, my teammate, my classmate, thank you so very much for making our very first show so special. And to you and Tracy, all the best, man. And man, just keep doing what you're doing, because you are the best. Broadway Don.
Thanks, Earl. I sure appreciate it, brother.
All right. That was Don Gaffney, everybody. My teammate, classmate, and friend, 1972 Raines High School, all-state performer, one of Florida's legendary quarterbacks from the time he was there from 71 to 75. We're going to take a short break again. Don, thanks again. We'll talk to you another time, and we're going to get some more bills paid right here on the Post Route. So again, this is the Post Route. I'm your host, W. Earl Kitchings. And as we've already talked about, if you are looking for that special gear, if you went to HBC, you're looking for that special gear you want to wear to the next game, to the next classic for next year, or you want to put your kids in some special gear, go online to the Anthony Lawrence Collection. They've got some of the most phenomenal stuff you ever want to see in your life, and they got it for all the HBCUs. They're exclusive HBCUs store. So if you can't get to Baton Rouge, Louisiana, go online to the AnthonyLawrenceCollection.com and find what you like on their website, and I guarantee you they will take care of you. Let them know that you heard about them here on the Post Route, and I'm sure they will be happy to know that you were watching our show tonight. Once again, the Anthony Lawrence Collection at the AnthonyLawrenceCollection.com for your HBCU gear and apparel. And then finally, if you want to know more about black quarterbacks, if you like to know who some of the guys are who played at the predominantly white institutions, who played at the HBCUs, get a copy of my book, The Forgotten QBs. Go to my website, quarterfiback.com. That's quarter, PHI, back.com. Click on the link and you will find how to order the book. It's only $35, shipping included. And you can then have some historical information right at your fingertips. This book is the little known history, facts, and information about Black quarterbacks who have played American football. Starting all the way back in 1903, the first Black quarterback at a predominantly white college was at the University of Ohio, or Ohio University. His name was Arthur Carr, and he and so many others, along with the many great quarterbacks who played at HBCUs. Go there and find the book, order it today, and we'll be happy that you did. The Forgotten QBs by yours truly, W. Earl Kitchens. Well, in our last 5 minutes, we want to take care of some things that we are working on as each week goes by. Each week, we come out with the Quarterfied Back watch list for high schools and HBCUs. And we're going to start with the HBCUs right now and give you the top guys on that list, starting with the guy who is the only quarterback at an HBCU to have thrown for 3,000 plus yards. And his name is David Wright of Allen University. His season is over. However, he finished the year with 3,019 yards and 19 touchdowns. Following him was Jaron Russell of Edward Waters. In third place was Aeneas Dennis of Benedict. And Aeneas has another game to play. He's already played 11, so he's got some playoff games to go into. Isaiah Freeman out of Lincoln, Pennsylvania. He's at 2,312 yards. Jeremiah Musa at Florida A&M University. Didn't play last week, but I guarantee you he's going to play this Saturday against Bethune-Cookman. He's at 2,266 in yards. In sixth place, Miles Crawley of Grambling. In seventh place, Aaron Allen of Alcorn. In eighth place, Riddick Donovan at West Virginia State. In ninth place, if you didn't get a chance to see Howard and North Carolina Central battle it out last Saturday, you missed a great game. Quentin Williams is the quarterback at Howard, and then rounding out the top 10 is Harold Blood, who is from Southern University. But what I really love to talk about are these guys who play at the high school level. So I'm going to start from the bottom to kind of build up to this guy who's at the top. So in 10th place, Anthony Hall of Escambia High School in Pensacola. He's right at 2,600 yards. Then there's Julian Lewis, the guy who finished number 2 in our voting last year to the Bipp Memorial Trophy. And the Bipp Memorial Trophy is the first and only trophy awarded to Black quarterbacks from HBCUs and Black quarterbacks at the high school level. This guy threw for 4,100 plus yards last year as he led his team to the state finals. Then in 8th place, Hussein Longstreet out of Centennial, Georgia. Bryce Underwood out of Belleville, Michigan. In 6th place, Caleb William out of Crowley, Texas. In 5th place, Eno Yapor of Norland of Miami. He's at 3,100 yards. He's the first guy in the top 5 to be at 3,100. Then there's Jaden Davis of Providence Day in Charlotte. He's at 3,000 yards. Andrew Atmore, Dudley High in North Carolina, 3,100. Natavius Husky out of Crestfield High School in Shelby, North Carolina at 32. But at the top of the list is Derek DJ Lagway of Willis High School in Willis, Texas, 3,521 yards, 51 touchdowns, and only 6 picks on the year. And I got it from an exclusive source by the name of Don Gaffney that Derek DJ Lagway is about 6'5", and he can hum that football. So that is our watch list for high school and colleges. And we are happy to bring that to you each and every week as we start dialing it down and getting ready for the voting of the second annual Bipp Memorial Trophy. Now, you may ask, what's a Bipp? Well, Bipp was a guy who played football as a quarterback in high school. He played for my father at Matthew W. Gilbert in Jacksonville, Florida. He led them to the first ever Black high school state football championship in 1958 with an 11-0 record. He went on to Florida A&M to play for the legendary coach Jake Gaither. And during his freshman year, in preparing for a game here in Jacksonville, He had an injury where he had suffered a severe neck injury. And within 1 week, Oliver Bip Joyce was gone. So we named our award, our memorial trophy, the Bip Memorial Trophy, to honor Oliver Joyce, a fine young man. He wanted to be a doctor. In 1958, he was already declaring that he wanted to be a doctor. Well, as irony would have it, he was called home to be not only a quarterback, but a fine young man in the hands of the Lord. But we felt it quite an honor for us to put that award name in his name. So we're happy to be looking at the second annual Bip Memorial Trophy. Last year, the high school winner was Prentice Air Nolan from Langston Hughes High School in Fairburn, Georgia. He finished his season with a 15-0 record, a state championship, 4,000 plus yards, and 55 touchdowns. Our HBCU winner from last year in 2022 was Shadur Sanders, who at that time played for Jackson State University. Both of these young men were fine quarterbacks last year, and we hope that they continue to have absolutely great careers as time goes forward. So we're keeping a watch for the upcoming Bip Memorial Trophy winners. So please, if you're interested, we put it out on Twitter on a weekly basis, the watch list, we do that. And if you want to reach out to us and ask us a question or give us a suggestion, if you know a black quarterback at a high school in your community that we do not have, because we have a national watch list for all high school quarterbacks, black quarterbacks in high school. And last year we had about 400. I think we're going to be close to 500 this year, because let me tell you, between Georgia, Florida, Texas, North Carolina, that fills up our list. And there are quite a lot of young men who have thrown for at least 2,000 plus yards. The ones we gave you tonight were the ones in our top 10, but there are many, many others. And as we wind this down, again, DJ Lagway is the man to be on the lookout for. So he's going to be a Florida Gator next year, and I'm sure my guest from tonight, Don Gaffney, is going to try to do his best to impart some wisdom and knowledge with that young man so that he can be the next great Florida quarterback to play in Gainesville. Well, we have had such a great time being with you tonight here on the Post Route. So once again, we would like to thank you for joining us. This show is a weekly show, Monday nights, 7 o'clock, just before Monday Night Football. We purposely did it that way because we wanted to give you some historical nuggets that you could enjoy and think about, not only during the game, but after the game. And we thought it not robbery to provide you with this information each week as we line it up for these quarterbacks, these black quarterbacks that we're going to have conversations with. Next week, my guest will be another teammate of mine who played in high school along with myself and Don Gaffney. He was Don Gaffney's backup in high school and became the second black quarterback at the University of Florida. Went on to play for the Minnesota Vikings. His name, Terry LeCount. Terry LeCount will be with us next Monday night here at the Post Route. So don't forget, 7 o'clock on YouTube, join us as we get ready to talk to another quarterback about their life, their challenges, and their love of this game called football. Because without these iconic guys doing what they did, standing on the shoulders of so many other great quarterbacks from programs from around the country, we would not have the guys you see playing on Sundays like we have now. And it is a testimony to these guys who played before them that they are able to do what they're doing now and to earn the type of income that they're doing now. Because when a lot of these guys were playing back in the 50s, 60s, 70s, they weren't making this type of money, let alone get an opportunity. So we're lining up quarterbacks each week to bring to you so you can hear their story. And we hope that you join us because we feel this is important to share our history and our knowledge and our legacies, most importantly, with those of you who love this game called football and want to know more. So don't forget, Monday nights here on YouTube, 7 o'clock, join me, your host, W. Earl Kitchen, for another edition of the Post Route. Until then, we'll see you next Monday night. Take care, everybody. Have a great week.